What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's review and recap Netflix's The Sandman Season 2. This will be a discussion, a review, a chat, whatever I figure out it's going to be as I talk about this. Episodes 7 through 9. So let's get into it. So let's talk about episode 7. So it opens up and we see Dream in Destiny's room. And he's like begging his older brother. He's like, help me. Help me. Like, I'm not ready to go yet. And if you don't remember, because Dream killed Orpheus, his son, he spilled family blood, which is like a cardinal sin, okay? And basically, once you spill family's blood, you meet your end at the hands of the kindly ones, aka the Furies. All right. And so Dream is in his older brother's room, Destiny, and he's like, bro, help me. Open up your book and tell me what I need to do, what I should do. Like, please give me advice. And he even says, the last time I came here, I asked for your advice and I didn't listen. Well, I promise you, if you give me advice, I will listen this time. So I was actually surprised that Destiny opened up the book, because he seems very guarded about it and not wanting to share what's in it. But you can tell he cares about Dream to a certain extent, like all the Endless do. So Destiny opens up the book. And when he opens it, it's nothing there. The pages are blank. And Dream is like, what is this? What is this? And Destiny lets it be known to Dream that, like, everyone has a fate, everyone has a destiny, but it all determines based off of the actions that you take. So whatever action that you take is going to write your future, your destiny, your fate. And so Dream is like, girl, this is not what I came for you for, okay? So he hears this from his brother and he's like, you know what? Let me go talk to the fates. Now, it was so weird to me the way that I feel like they switched up, especially when it came from the fated mother and the fated maiden, because in the beginning, it seemed like they were way more understanding to the fact that Dream did what he did because Orpheus him too. Like, they seemed like they did not want to, like, actually follow the law, do their responsibilities, and in Dream. But the crone was very much like, we got a job, like, it's time. So it was weird that as the episodes continued, they got vicious. And I was like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot. Okay, I said, y'all switching up. Okay, you linking up with the ops. All right. So we actually see Dream go and visit the fated ones in their room. And so he brings like this ferret. He also brings I think it was like spices and this other like herb. And the crone is the only one that's like, these are not gifts, they're bribes. And they ask him to like come sit down at the table, and they don't harm him immediately. The maiden ends up telling him, like, it may take a few days before we come for you, maybe even 10,000 years. It just all depends on who petitions them in order to come after him. All right. And once they come after him, there's literally nothing like he can do. Like, he can't really even harm them, to be honest. And so he knows, like, Dream knows he has a list of enemies. Of it, like people hate him, and it's his fault because of his attitude and the way that he moves and things of that nature. So he's just sitting at the table, just like, so I'm pretty much screwed. So okay. Now Dream is starting to realize that he can't really stop what is supposed to come for him. And you can even see, like, in his eyes, like, his brain is like the wheels in his head is turning. And because he's like, okay, if I can't stop what's about to happen, I need to prepare to make sure that all the inhabitants in my realm is going to be okay. So the scene switches and we're now back on Earth, in the waking world. And we see breaking news. We actually have this anchor woman. She's sitting at her desk and this guy runs up to her and he's like, we have to run this story. And she's like, I don't believe this. Like, what is this? And he's like, it's real. like, we have to run this story. And she's like, where'd you get your sources from? And he's like, the big man himself. And the camera pans, and it's like breaking news that the Pope just announced that they're going to allow women into the priesthood. So it's causing a lot of chaos and confusion in the Catholic world, okay? So we actually end up seeing the Pope, him, and I don't know what they would call the other people. I grew up, Baptist. So I know there's hierarchies when it comes to like the Pope and the people that are around him, but all I know is the Pope. So are the people around him called like archbishops, or are they something else? Okay. And I don't mean that like offensively or anything like that. So I'm just saying his council were following him. So they're all discussing what he just announced and all of that stuff. You then see Dream coming out the shadows like a stalker, and he says hello to the Pope and his council. They're all like, oh, who's this? And so they kind of wave the other people away, other than the Pope and his like right hand man. And then once it's just the three of them, Dream ends up saying, hello, Loki, hello, Puck. And if you don't remember Puck was the mischievous fairy that almost ruined like Dream's like sorry to the fairies, to Queen Titania, and I think King Alaron, or is Alcaron? Y'all know who I'm talking about. The fairy king and queen. Okay. And so we find out that Puck and Loki are in a relationship. I said, oh, okay. I said, okay, how's this gonna work? Because both of y'all can't be trusted. And they actually even talk about that. They both actually said like it's such a beautiful relationship because they really don't trust one another, to be honest. Like they don't have any expectations of each other because they're both tricksters. They're both like, they like to con and come after people and really mess with people's minds. So it's kind of like beautiful because basically they're the same person pretty much. So Dream ends up asking, how are the Pope and the other guy? And they're like, oh, they're fine. We just sprinkle a little fairy dust. They sleep somewhere, but we cool. We just causing a little fun. Ain't nobody got harmed by what we did. And so you don't even need to be mad. So then Loki is like, why are you here though? And Dream is like, that favor I told you I was going to ask for out of you, I need you to do me a favor. And I was so surprised that Loki had an attitude about it. Now, I know he's not somebody that wants to be bogged down by obligations, but it's like, you're not underneath the earth being tortured by your dad and brother because Dream helped you out. So I was just kind of like, why is it such a big deal that why can't you help him out? And Loki tried to like check Dream, being like, why are you even doing this? Why don't you just enjoy the time that you have? Like, and then he also says it's not in my nature to help others or to be there or be dependable. And Dream said, I don't care what's in your nature. You gonna help me out. Okay. So then we have this scene of Loki and Puck, walking through, I think, Italy. And because isn't that where the Pope stays? Is it Italy? I think it is. Is it Italy, y'all? I don't know where the Pope lives. Okay. Like I said, I'm Baptist. But they're walking through the town and he got an attitude. Like Loki is throwing a big old hissy fit. Like just pissed off, pushing people, snatching things out of people, just being nasty. Okay. And Puck kind of thinks it's funny. But then Puck basically told him, why don't you give Dream, aka Morpheus, like what he wants? Why don't you give him what he wants, just not when he wants it? So now both of them have came up with a plan to cause chaos and confusion with this whole entire situation in order to free Loki from having to owe Dream a favor. So while that's happening, we go to Dream's realm and we see like the residents, mainly Lucien, Nula, aka Lady Nula, Mervin, aka Pumpkinhead, Matthew, and then we actually see Fiddler's Green. So they're all like trying to brainstorm ways of like keeping the kindly ones out of, the dreaming realm. They're all like, we could do this, we could do that, we have to protect our home, like this is our home. And so while the crew is trying to brainstorm ideas of how to protect the realm and keep everyone together, Dream pops up in the background like a creeper, and he's basically telling them, like, y'all, this is stupid. Like, this is pointless because once the kindly ones come for me, once the fates come for me, once the Furies, even though they don't like being called the Furies, pull up on me, it's over. It's over. Everybody's gone. And everyone else is like, well, we still want to fight for our home. We still want to fight to stay together. So then Dream basically tells them that pretty much Daniel Hall, which is Lyda's son, the one that she conceived in the dreaming realm, will be his next successor. And Lucian is like, Daniel's 8 months old. That's a baby. Like, why are we picking him? Why do we pick him? I don't like this. You're stressing me out, as you always do. As you always do. And Dream is just like, it is what it is. That's what it's going to be. So then the scene switches, and now we're back in the waking world, but specifically in London. And we see Rose Walker from season 1, as well as Lyda, aka Hippothelia. Is it Hippothelia? I think it's Hippothelia, but everyone was calling her Lyta. And baby Daniel, they pull up to Unity's home. If you don't remember Unity was one of the people that suffered from the sleeping sickness once Dream was captured by Roderick Burgess. She is also like, I think the great aunt, or just the great aunt, but I think it's the great aunt. No, I think it's a great aunt of Rose Walker, as well as Dream is also, I think, Rose Walker's like great uncle, because Desire and Unity got busy in the dreaming realm, and she had a baby and started a family and added to her family. Okay, so pretty much, like, they pull up to this manor. It's a beautiful manor, and we get introduced to Paul. If you don't remember Paul was the husband or lover, but I'm gonna call him the husband of Alex Burgess, who is Roderick Burgess' son. And if you remember last season, or season 1, when Dream finally broke free of the prison, he basically put Alex under a sleep sickness. So he's been laying in bed in like a comatose state for like years as punishment for being one of Dream's captors. So that is how Paul got connected to Unity, because Unity was also underneath the sleeping sickness as well. So while they're walking around the manor, they actually get introduced to Mrs. Shore, who is pretty much like the housekeeper or the nanny of the place. And then there's another person there by the name of Simon, who is the valet. Well, while Simon was in another room, he mistaken Puck as being the new visitors from America. And Puck actually used his fairy dust to put him to sleep so that he could, transform into Simon. So we find out that part of Puck and Loki's plan to start chaos in Dream's world, or in Dream's plan, is to kidnap Daniel, because they know Daniel will be the next successor to the dreaming realm. The episode continues, and we actually have Nula and Dream having a conversation where Nula is basically telling Dream, look, I will go back to the ferry and I will rally the troops and we'll be prepared. Like, they'll come in here and fight with you and for you. And Dream is kind of looking at her like, girl, that's what you're doing. It's a waste of time. I'm sorry, ma'am, it's a waste of time. And she's like, but no, like, I like, we can do this. And he's like, no, I spilled family's blood, and by law, I must meet my end. And she's like, well, who says you have to meet your end that way? Like, who says that? And he's like, the creators of the law. And she was like, well, why can't you talk to those creators in order to get them to change the law or stop what's going to happen? And Dream kind of looks at her like, girl, only if you knew who these people were, these beings are. So we actually see Dream go visit his parents and the ones that created the laws. And it is Father Time and Mother Night. And we also find out, like, this is why Dream is the way that he is: distant, cold, all about himself, all about his duty, is because both of his parents are basically that way. Like, Time is very cold and very upfront with his disdain of his children, and Night is very distant and pretty much like indifferent and kind of sees the kids as like a nuisance to her. So he visits his father first, and he's met with hostility. His dad is like, why are you here, Dream? And Dream is like, well, can't I just come by and say hi to my father? And he's like, no, you can't. Because the only sibling that comes and visits me and doesn't ask me for anything is your brother Destiny. Okay. And that's only because Destiny was given everything by me, that he just comes here just to hang out. Everybody else come here because they want something from me. So what do you want? What do you want? Dream, and Dream is just like, I just came here to talk. So the dad is like, I know what's about to happen to you. And he's just like, why did you do what you did? Like, why did you kill Orpheus? And Dream is like, because my son asked me to, and I've already failed him the first time, so I wasn't gonna fail him again. And he did it out of love, pretty much. And you end up hearing Time basically say, that's why I don't like kids. They make you weak, they make you vulnerable and susceptible to your enemies. Like, there's no reason why you should have did what you did. And you're saying you did this out of love. Do you think I would help you because I love you? Because I don't. And I said, wow. Wow. And Dreamy's even looking at him like, dang, I can't believe you just said you don't love me. Okay. Okay, I see what I'm dealing with. So then Time ends up saying that, honestly, I could send you back in time, but it won't change anything. Like, things have already been set in place, and what's going to happen is going to happen. Like, it is what it is. So Dream gets up and he basically tells his dad, like, children love their parents no matter what they basically do, which I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But what I will say is, kids do allow their parents to get away with a lot before they start to back away, cut contact, or stand up for themselves because they love their parents so much. But I don't necessarily believe they forgive, like, you accept whatever your parents do to you. So as Dream is leaving, the his father ends up asking him, so how's your mother? And Dream was like, I don't know, I haven't spoken to her in a while. And he's like, oh, I thought you would have spoken to her first, and that's why you came to me, because she said no in helping you. And Dream was like, no, I just came to talk to you because I wanted to talk to you, because you're my father. And so Dream leaves, and then we actually see him meet with his mother. And she's very, like I said, she's into her own world and indifferent. She kind of does the same thing, but in a nicer way about, Dream pulling up on her and her not seeing him in a long time. We find out that Destiny and Delirium come and visit her. But like when Delirium's around, she's just kind of like hiding in the shadows and scurrying about. And she's like, I don't understand why she does that. And Dream is just like, she wants your attention, mother. Like, she wants your affection. That's why she does that. And Mother Night is like, oh, that's why she do that. And I'm like, you can't tell? So then while they're having a conversation, his mom basically offers to create a space in her room for him to just live and like hide out, basically, again, like away from the faithful. And he declines. He's like, no, I have a room to like protect. His mom gets frustrated. She goes and sits down, and she's just like, this was always you. Even when you were a kid, you loved, like everything was like a means to an end with you. Like, there was no like in between. And Dream basically says, well, I only was like that because I thought that's what I needed to be, and that's what I thought, that's what y'all wanted me to be, and I'm sorry if that's how it felt. And she basically twists his apology around, saying, if you need to hate me or like blame me for what's about to happen, then do so. I'll give you that in peace. Like, let's not part as enemies, let's part as friends. Again, it's no wonder why Dream is the way that he is, why even some of the endless are the way that they are. Honestly, I believe that the most grounded endlesses are Destiny, Death, and Destruction. But I think all three of them are the oldest, because it just seems like they have a sense of like stability that the other ones don't. The other four don't. Like, when you look at it, because Destiny's book basically tells him everything, maybe that's why he has like a sense of calmness about everything. But then you have Death, who works very closely with the public. She has humanity because she's always around humanity. And then you look at Destruction. He loved humanity so much that he no longer wanted to participate in destroying it. So it's just kind of crazy that like the other four, well, because even Despair, I would say, has some type of, she's grounded too in a way, because she's always looking at the sorrow and despair of humanity. Whereas I think like Dreams, Desires, and Delirium, like I don't think they're frivolous, but I will say they could be, daydreaming is a distraction. Sometimes the things you desire aren't what you really want or need. And then Delirium is, it's not great to always be in a state of like psychosis and not knowing what's going around. you. Like, I don't know. It was interesting to see Mother Night and Father Time and see how Dream is the way that he is. So we get back to the dreaming and we see the crew preparing. So Fiddler's Green, Mervin, Matthew, Lucian, they're all like preparing. And they're like shooting bow and arrows. And then Pumpkinhead comes back and he's like, girl, y'all gonna need weapons, and pulls out a machine gun, a couple of machine guns, and they're like, where you been hiding this at? While they're playing, like doing target practice, they actually see somebody riding with a horse, and at first they thought it was one of the kindly ones, but then when Nula looked through the scope of the gun, she realized it was her brother Clarigan, and Clarigan is there to come and get Nula, because word has spread that Dream is about to meet his end, and everyone kind of knows once he's gone, the dreaming realm, or if they encounter the faithful, they will all be dead. And so Clarigan is like, I don't want to lose my sister. So she's like, I'm not leaving, and I don't think Morpheus would allow me to leave. Like, I like where I'm at. And Clarigan was like, well, I'm gonna have a conversation with him to bring you back. And they actually have a conversation with Dream, and Dream pretty much tells her, no, you should go. Like, it's not safe here. You should definitely go. Like, it's not safe. It's not safe. And she looks disappointed because she wants to stay with them because she's able to be herself in the dreaming. But Dream actually gives her this necklace where she can summon him and call on a boon, and he'll actually do it, like grant that wish or help her out. So we actually see Morpheus and Lucian have a conversation where Lucian, the therapist, had to talk some sense into Dream, because Dream was actually like saying how, it's kind of presumptuous for children to expect so much from their parents when ultimately they gave you life. And Lucian had to tell him, no, it's not, girl. Baby, it's not. Because at the end of the day, there are parents who care about their children, want to get to know their kids, who are happy around their kids, that want them to succeed and things of that nature. And even you loved your child enough to take his life in order for him to be set free. So just because your parents suck doesn't mean you suck as a parent, even though I'm like, you kind of are a deadbeat, okay? But you don't suck as bad as your, because in the end, Dream made it right. So he doesn't suck as bad as his actual parents. And he basically tells Lucian that he appreciates being able to confide in her. Like, over the years, he doesn't know what he would do without her. And he sees her as like a parental figure in his life. We then end up seeing Rose and Lithia. They're out and about the town in London. And something like they bump into Mad Hattie. They bump into Hattie, and Hattie kind of speaks ominously about Daniel, saying how, oh yeah, Daniel, that's a beautiful name. He was the one that could like interpret dreams and things of that nature. And that kind of shakes up Lyda because, her and Dream, they don't see it for each other. So she immediately decides to call the house to see how Daniel is, because Mrs. Shore is watching over him as Rose and Lyda go out on the night of the town to go get dinner. And when she calls, nobody picks up, and we actually see that she's knocked out with fairy dust, and Puck has now picked up Daniel and basically kidnapped him. Kidnapped poor baby Daniel. So now everybody is stressed out, because then we go back to the dreaming world and we see like all of the residents saying goodbye to Nula, and she's upset. Everybody's upset, but she's basically like, okay, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm going to go back to the fairy world, even though I don't want to, but just know I'm going to come back. Eventually I'm going to come back. So he tells his rest of his crew, like, y'all can leave. Like, just leave. And we find out that Nula told the group that, hey, if you would like to come to the ferry, you can come to the ferry and live there if you want to. And you'll be safe there if the dreaming room becomes a place of danger. And they're all like, okay, bet. We will if we need to, but right now we're going to stay here. And that's pretty much how the episode ends, with Daniel kidnapped by Puck, Rose and Lyda not knowing what's going on, and Dream speaking to his dysfunctional parents. Okay. So episode 8 opens up and we see Clarigan and Nula back in the ferry. And Clarigan is trying to like pressure his sister to put back on her glamour. And mind you, she doesn't look bad. And even when they do the like her switching to her glamour, it's still the same thing. I feel like they should have made a bigger difference between the way that she looks out of glamour than in glamour. Like, I don't know, because I was like, the difference didn't look too different to me. I think she looked fine either way, but I guess they're saying hair and makeup makes it better. So Nula is like protesting. She's like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. And Clarigan is like, but you gonna do it. And he actually tricks her by like doing a handshake with her after giving her compliments. And his glamour is strong enough for it to maintain on himself as well as Nula. And so she's pissed because she's like, why? Like, take it off. And he's like, no. And as they're walking into the ferry, they actually bump into Queen Titania and like her company. And so Queen Titania tells Clarigan to take the horses so that they can like drink water and rest while her and Nula walk around and talk about what happened in the dreaming. She's being gossipy because she wants to know like what's going on now that everybody knows that the kindly ones are coming for Dream. She also is like trying to see if Dream has said anything about her. And I'm like, oh girl, you like him. Because I was wondering, is that why the king and queen fell out with Dream? Like, were Titania and Dream messing around? But they never specify it. But she definitely, in this iteration of the Sandman, you could tell that she has kind of feelings for him because she's prying, trying to see, like, did he ever speak about me or anything of that nature? And Nula is just kind of like, girl, not to me. Like, so if he did, he never spoke about you to me, pretty much. Like, I don't know. And that kind of bothers Titania. And then she sees the necklace around Nula's neck. And she's just like, did he give you that? And she was like, yeah, it was a gift. A parting gift for leaving, the room. And you could already see the wheels and the eyes like, oh, so what was y'all doing? And Nula is like, girl, ain't nothing going down. Like, we just cool. We friends like that, okay? We friends like that. So then we end up actually seeing Dream visit Despair in her room. Or Despair actually comes, no, I think Despair either comes to Dream because his like throne chair is surrounded by Despair's mirrors. And they start having a conversation. We find out that Despair would go and visit Orpheus from time to time. And she was like, he would always ask about you. And she said, granted, she couldn't really give him any advice about him because they don't really have a close relationship, but she was just like, he did always ask about you. And Dream also talks about how, he's sorry that he's never been really like a good brother to her or really there for her. And hopefully when the new iteration of him, when Daniel takes his position, he he'll treat her better. And so then Despair is like, Daniel, where have I heard that before? And then she goes and looks in one of her mirrors, and we're now back at the manor, and we see that everybody is knocked out, and now Rose and Lyda are now at the house, and they're looking for Daniel, and we realize they realize now that baby Daniel gone. And so now they calling the police left and right, and they're trying to get them to the house. We then see Loki and Puck in disguise as cops or detectives pull up to the house and try to survey the land. We see Puck position like sand specifically somewhere to implicate Morpheus. While all of this is going on, Despair and Dream are like looking through the mirror, and like Dream is like, of course they would do something like this. So, and Lyda genuinely off rip just believes what they're saying, and she's like, I know who took him, because Dream, every time he visits the baby, tells her, oh, I'm always gonna come back for this baby. I'm coming back for this baby. So now Dream is like, we have to find Daniel. He's supposed to be my successor, and I also don't like him around Loki and Puck. Like, we have to find him. So then Lucien lets Dream know that honestly, you probably shouldn't. You can't leave. You can't leave here because you're safe here. Lucien finds out in one of her books that the Endless cannot be harmed in their own realm. So in order for Dream to be harmed, he would have to leave his realm And that's when the kindly ones can attack him or harm him or destroy his dreaming realm. So now Dream is like, who can I get to go looking for him? And we find out that he pops up on Joanna Constantine. She having a steamy, bloody sex dream. And Dream basically, snaps her out of it, and he asks for her help. He basically says, there's a little boy missing by the name of Daniel Hall, and I need you to find him. And she's like, what's in it for me? And Dream basically says, I'll give you this. And it is Joanna Constantine we saw in, I think it would be like the 19 or the 1800s, who fell in love with Orpheus. She kept a journal, and Dream it decides, like, I'll give it to you. And so she reads the journal, and she's just like, what was I supposed to get out of this? Well, he was like, well, clearly you were having a dream about sex. I thought you wanted to understand love and all of that stuff. And she's like, girl, no. I was with Joanna, because Joanna said, you promised to give her anything and she chose to be with her lover. Okay. like what? So we actually see them go to Unity's Manor, and they pull up, and we see Dream walk into a random room, and there staying like in bed is Alex Burgess. And Joanna is like, you could wake him up. Like, it's been years. And Dream is like, not the way that I suffered. He need to suffer a little bit more. You then see Paul come in the room and be like, oh, I thought you were going to wake him up. And he, like, Paul's like, haven't we suffered long enough? And Dream was like, well, no, like, I didn't make you suffer. And Paul was like, yes, you did. Because I love him. Like, you made both of us suffer. And you did make both of them suffer. So then Lyda sees Dream, and they get into a heated confrontation where she was like, where's my kid? And Dream was like, I didn't take your baby. And I was annoyed that Dream never said that, like, Loki and Puck, the god of, like, this and the god of that, took your child. I didn't take your child. But he was like, I didn't take him, and I'm looking for him too. Okay, so then Lyda was like, if you find him, will you give him back? And then Dreams hit her with, well, he not safe with you. And that lady said, ah, and was about to go off. And Joanna was like, we'll make sure you get your baby back. We will make sure you get your baby back. All right, ma'am? Okay. So then Lyda basically threatens to kill Dream if anything happens to Daniel. And then she tells them to get out the house. She always trying to kick people out of places where I'm just like, girl, if they don't want to, they don't have to leave. Like, he is an immortal, like, overpowered being. He don't got to leave nowhere. He's not a vampire. Okay. So we then see Dream and Johanna having this conversation. They're like talking, and she's like, you could make amends with people that you have wronged. You could let Alex Burgess go. Like, it's been years. You could wake him up. You could also allow Lyda to keep her child and not be so nasty towards her. And as they're talking, she starts to realize that Dream doesn't want to right any of his wrongs. He wants to face punishment for what he did to Orpheus. But Joanna's like, if you read the diary, he never blamed you for what happened to him. But Dream still blames himself that he never helped his son, and then ultimately he did what he did. So he's just like, you don't understand. So then Joanna basically says, I'm not helping you go on like a suicide mission. Like, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, but I need your help. And she was like, the only way I will help you is if you go back to the dreaming realm, because she also knows that the kindly ones cannot harm him if he's in his own realm. Okay. And so he decides to go back, but when he goes back, he like starts to put plans into motions. So before Dream goes back, we actually see him go meet Hob Gelding, and we actually see Hob Gelding at the grave of one of his wives. And Dream apologizes to him to make him like suffer all of this. They end up going to Hob Gelding's bar, and Dream basically says, you were a bet between me and my sister Death. Like, we just wanted to see like who would choose to spend an eternity as a human. Like, why would you want immortality? And it was a nice conversation, because Hobgelding's perspective to me is very like realistic. Like he ends up telling him nobody's life is perfect. Even if you try to be perfect. He was like, there will always be ups and downs, but one thing you can do is always try to right your wrongs. And I saw somebody tweet this out that was talking about the show that basically said Hobgelding learned to like accept the pitfalls and the disappointment of what it meant to be immortal, whereas like Orpheus, he totally succumbed to his despair and put himself in a worse spot, you know? So I thought that perspective was interesting, looking at Orpheus's immortality and the way that Hobgelding like does immortality. He creates families, he has children. He has this life so that it's like there's always somebody there in a sense of that, but it is hard. He says, it never gets easy when you lose children, when you lose wives, you just kind of keep going, okay? And so with that, after the conversation that Dream has with Hob, he decides to let Alex go free. He goes back to the dreaming and he pulls out this orb and he places it in the area where he makes his creations, and we see Alex, but he's a child. He's like I think in his 20s or maybe like a teenager. The way we saw him the first season as a young man when Paul and him first met, and he immediately apologizes to Dream when he sees him. He's like, I'm sorry for what we did to you. And Dream is like, I'm sorry for what I did to you. And he opens up the prison. And Alex is like, is this a trap? Like, is this real? And he's like, no, it's real. And he holds out his hand. And we actually see Alex wake up in the waking world, and he screams out Paul's name, and Paul comes running to him, and they hug each other and they embrace one another. We then go back to Loki and Puck's apartment, and we see that Puck has fallen in love with baby Daniel. Like, he is just like, he's so different from other babies. He's so like chill, like he's so understanding and he listens. Loki is like annoyed because he's like, kids suck. I've had 6 of them, One's a spider thing, woman. The other one's a huge snake. Another one's like a horse thing. Then I have one that like was a wolf, but then it got ate by its other brother because my daddy turned him into a wolf. Like, children suck. They just cause chaos and despair. Like, they suck. And Puck is like, no, but Daniel's different. And then Loki is looking at Puck like, I hope you're not getting attached because he's what we need. Like, he's my pawn in all of this. So as the day goes on, you end up seeing Puck pick up Daniel, and like he's rushing down the hallway, and Loki is calling out to him because he's like getting out of the shower, and he's like, Puck. And then he realizes the baby's going too. So then we see Loki with when I say you got a nice ass, the actor that plays him, nice booty, okay? And he's aggressively walking down the hallway like, Puck, where are you going? And Puck's like, he's not a pawn. He's not a pawn. He's a child. He's a baby, Loki. This isn't right. And so Loki is pissed because he's like, when did you get a conscience? Mind you, he is very handsome. The actor that plays Loki is very, like, he gives like an early 90s kind of vibe, especially when he was walking down the hallway. It reminded me of American Psycho. Who played American Psycho? Was it Christian Bale or Tom Cruise? No, I think it was Christian Bale. So was that movie in the 80s or the 90s? I think it was the 80s. But I feel like that actor could play in that type of movie. He kind of gives like an 80s, 90s kind of like attractiveness, okay? So now Loki's irritated. We actually see Puck pull up to the manor, and he just walks in and he sees Dream, and he goes immediately to Dream, and he's like, look, I'm going to give you this baby, but before I give you this baby, you have to let Loki free. You have to let him be free. Like, he's paid his debt. Like, it's not in his nature to do these types of things. And to Puck's surprise, it was actually Loki disguised as Dream. And Puck is just kind of taken aback, but Loki is just like, oh, I couldn't believe that you actually like cared about me. So then his anger kind of got like cold a little bit, because he was just like, okay, I'm not gonna really piss, like, I'm pissed with you, but I'm not that pissed with you that I take your life, because remember, I'm a god and you're just a fairy. like don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. So we then see Loki and Puck go back to their apartment, and they're talking. We find out that Puck gave Daniel a little bit of fairy dust so he could go to sleep, and they start drinking and like giggling and like kikiing with each other. And we find out that Loki spiked Puck's drink. So he ends up passing out. And while he's passed out, Loki gets baby Daniel and like throws him into the fire. And I was not expecting to hear like the baby crying. I was like, oh my gosh, I know this isn't real, but this is bothering me. I don't like it. like he just threw him in there. I just like, okay, Loki. Okay. So he, disguised as a cop, decides to call Lyda, Rose, and Miss Shore to his place in order to give them an envelope of Daniel's corpse. And he lied about the location. He said, oh, we found the body in such and such area. And Mrs. Rose is like, that there's nothing like that over there. I go over there all the time. And Loki's just like, it was a different area. So Mrs. Shore is becoming very much like suspicious of this cop, which they don't know is Loki. So Lyda is distraught because now she thinks her son is gone. And we end that portion of the episode to now going back to the dreaming, and we see Dream back in his area where he freed Alex. Now he's making a second Corinthian, or Corinthian 2.0, and Lucian is bewildered and like she's worried. Matthew the Crow flies up and he's like, girl, Lucian told me what you doing and I don't understand what we doing. Why are we doing this? Because Dream asked Lucian to go get Corinthian skull because he gave it to her for safekeeping. So he gives, like, Lucian goes, gets the skull, and we see him put the skull into the new model that is Corinthian 2.0. And he basically says, this Corinthian will be better because I'm better. And everybody else is like, are you sure about that? Because the last one tried to murk you. So episode 9, Corinthian 2.0 is here and everybody is uncomfortable, including me. When I tell you Corinthian in season 1 made me so uncomfortable, like I didn't even like looking at the TV, especially if he didn't have his shades on. Whoever thought of like putting teeth where eyes are supposed to be, terrifying. He is terrifying. He is definitely nightmare fuel, okay? But he's a lot nicer than the first Corinthian. He has fragments of the first Corinthian, but he's very like sarcastic, but there still seems to be care and kindness there. But he is like a newborn baby. Dream decided to make Corinthian number 2 in order to help protect Joanna as she went looking for Daniel, because he can no longer leave the dreaming room unless he wants to suffer the fate of, being harmed by the kindly ones. So Joanna not happy that she got to babysit. And she also don't like Corinthian numbers 2's like snarky attitude, but she's going to deal with it. Dream ends up giving her this necklace that can unmake Corinthian number 2 if he tries to go like serial killer. Okay, but she's just like, I bet. So we actually get this really cute scene of them on the bus together where he's asking like, so you got a husband, you got a boyfriend, you got a girlfriend, I'm right here. So now we go to Lyda and Rose. So, Lyda has just been informed that her child is gone and she is distraught, which is understandable. We see Loki being followed by Mrs. Shore as he plays detective because Mrs. Shore does not believe that Daniel is gone. She also feels like there's something very suspicious about this detective. So Loki notices Mrs. Shore following him and proceeds to like trap her so that they can have a conversation. We also see Mad Hattie looking at Lyda as she's grieving because she sent everybody away. So she's like sitting on this bench by herself. We go back to the dreaming room and like Dream is going crazy, not being able to leave his room when he pleases. He was like, this feels like a cage, and he's getting into stuff because you see Lucian in the library, it's real quiet. She's reading, she's writing. Dream grabs one of the books and it falls down and she's like, can I help you? And he's like, I need something to do. And so Lucian is like, well, there's a lot of like disputes happening in the room. Maybe you could help with that. And he's like, I need something else to do. And she's like, well, Do what all people who don't have immortality do. They like cherish the time that they have. So make a difference, like do something. So then after a while, after having a conversation with her, he decides to, start helping out with some of the like diplomatic issues in his realm. So we then see, we go to the ferry. We see Nula in her room pissed off that she is still like in the glamour form. Like she has on makeup, her hair is perfectly curled. She keeps trying to like pull out her curls, but they keep coming back to where they are. They keep falling back into place. Or the more she messes up her hair, the nicer her hair looks. And it's like pissing her off. So we then see her go to Claire again into his room. They must have had a straight up orgy or a killer party, because it's like half naked people laid everywhere with nothing but like wine in their hand or like food everywhere. And she's like banging on the door like, Claire again, wake up. Get this glamour off of me. And he's like, no, you just look so pretty and I'm not going to do that. She's like, I need you to get this off of me because I need to find the captain of the guard so he can help me go back to the dreaming. And Claire again is like being helpful but not being helpful. Honestly, he irritated me. I was like, you suck as a brother, bro. Like, oh my gosh, you suck, because you're aggravating. You're so aggravating. So Claire again basically is like, in a sense, like I said, he's helpful but not helpful. He won't take the glamour off of her because she's basically like, if you want to have a meeting with Queen Titania, she's not going to speak to you if your glamour is not on. She's not gonna even be like, she's not gonna be open to it. So keep it on and I'll still help you go find the captain of the guards. We also find out he messed around with the captain of the guards. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. We go back to Mrs. Shore, and Loki is, like I said, he noticed that she's following him, and she ends up getting caught up because she's asking all these questions, and Loki's getting annoyed, and so he pulls out a gun on her. She kind of freaks out, and he's like, keep walking. So he walks her into this, like, secluded place, and she turns around and she was like, if you're going to take my life, at least tell me what happened to Daniel. Like, you owe me at least that. And he's like, I don't owe you nothing. He actually turns the gun into a cigarette, and then he like lights her on fire because Loki is also, I think, the god of fire. And so he basically tells her, I owe nobody nothing. So Loki is very much like, I will not be beholden unto anybody. So even Mrs. Shore being like, you owe me that, pissed him off enough for him to set her on fire. Also, I also feel like because they are like immortal beings and gods and all of that and goddesses and that stuff like that, he didn't have to kill her. Maybe he could have like wiped her memory clean or something, but he didn't have to set that lady on fire. He just wanted to do that just to do it. So we Delirium in Destiny's realm. Delirium is in Destiny's realm and she's asking for help to find Barnabas. If you don't remember who Barnabas is, it was Destruction's dog. And she's just kind of like, he left. Like, I don't know where he went, but sometimes he gets a little frustrated with me because he'll tell me, I would very much like you not to play with the laws of gravity, And Destiny is like, well, that's good advice. Like I understand why he doesn't like that. And a Delirium was like, I'm actually like surprised that we're talking because the last time we talked, we didn't end on a good note. And I hope you forgot about it because I forgot about it too. So I just need you to help me find my dog. And do you think that Dream would come? And Destiny is pretty much telling her, if you go looking for your dog, you will more than likely find your dog, but you'll also find some things that you probably don't want to. And I don't think it would be a good idea to have Dream come. But Delirium wants to cheer Dream up because she was like, since they went on their quest, he's been down in the dumps and depressed, and she thinks that another quest would help. So then she asks for advice from Destiny, but as Destiny is talking, another one pops up and starts talking, and they're giving basically like conflicting answers. Like one was like, follow the path. The other one was like, I wouldn't advise that. And then next thing you know, a multiple ones start like popping up, and she's confused, but she's also like, can you teach me that? Because I would love to talk like at the same time. Like I would love to talk at the same time. So why, like, teach me that too. So we go back to the dreaming world and we see Dream actually trying to settle the petty disputes that are happening in his realm. He runs into Fiddler's Green, aka Mr. Gilbert, aka Mr. Green, because that's what I call him, Mr. Green. And Dream and Mr. Green are having a conversation. Mr. Green keeps bringing up Orpheus, and you could tell that it's bothering Dream, because Dream really feels badly for having to end his son's existence. Like, he feels like he should not have done that, even though that is what his child wanted. And honestly, if he would have helped his child when he asked him in the beginning to go to Hades and, bargain for his wife's soul, then this would not have happened. But we know that's not true, because even his father, who is time, said, I could send you back in time and it still would be this outcome. Something was going to happen for this to happen. So Dream is just like, you can see he's getting irritated and annoyed, but Mr. Green keeps going on. He ends up saying that you did not kill your son. You actually sacrificed yourself for your son's sake. And that, to me, is bigger than anything. He goes on to say that even with you knowing what was going to happen, that the moment that you did it for your child. And that shows that you have actually changed from who you were, the person that I've known for so many years, to this person now. And that means your destiny and your future is definitely going to be different. And the future itself for all of us is going to be different. And he kind of looks at him, Dream looks at him just kind of like, he kind of has a point, but still, I don't feel good about what's happening to me right now. So then we see Joanna and Corinthian 2.0 in the real world, looking around, trying to find information and things of that nature. And it was interesting because everybody is uncomfortable around Corinthian. It makes sense. He has teeth for eyes. His predecessor was a homicidal maniac, okay? But this one is different. Even though he has fragments of Corinthian, or the first Corinthian, you can tell that this one is gentler. Like, he's kind to a certain extent. Like, he wants to be in this world. He doesn't hate humanity. He's not angry at Dream. Like, he actually wants to help. But also, he is very much like, I'm going to listen to whatever Dream tells me, because the last time I got unmade. So this time it's not going to happen again, because there's a moment where Joanna starts to realize that maybe he's not the one that I had to fight or known before, because she sees Corinthian playing with this dog. It was a cute basset hound. And she's just like, the first one would have never did that. So she can tell that he is different. So she can't find any leads on Loki or Puck. And so she decides to do like this summoning spell to summon Odin. And Corinthian immediately like swats her hand away because she needs mead, which I think is alcohol. And he like, we not doing that. Dream said we can't do that. And she's like, what are you scared of? And he's like, the last time I didn't listen, the first one that didn't listen ain't here no more. I likes being here. Why don't we just summon, like, why don't you just find a spell to find Loki? Just do that. Just do that. And so then Joanna brings up how like she can do this spell that like whatever Loki has like cause chaos with, burned or whatever, they'll be able to find it because he is the god of fire. So she lights this match, does this spell, and we see this trail of fire, and it leads them all the way to, unfortunately, Miss Shore's body. And so Joanna was about to like do this spell to make her body talk and to give them like the last couple of minutes of her life. But then Corinthians was like, nah, I got this. He takes out her eyes and he eats them. And he basically sees everything she has experienced all the way up until her death. So he takes them to the apartment where Loki and Puck are at. So I told y'all last time, we found out that Loki threw the baby in the fire. So Puck finally wakes up and he sees Daniel's body in the fire, and he's like visibly like upset about it. But then we find out that the baby wasn't really dead. When Loki takes the body out, it's actually like a shell casing. So he's taking pieces of the shell off of Daniel, and now it has like stripped away his humanity and fully activated his powers. And Puck was like, did you know that was going to work? And he was like, it was like a 50-50 chance. Either it would work or it wouldn't work. And that disgusts Puck. So Loki tells this story about Demeter. I think that's the name of the goddess that actually like, or the person. Sometimes my Greek mythology be merging together. But she bathed her child in fire and it erased their humanity. So Puck is pissed because he's just kind of like, you didn't know if that was going to happen on top. Like he was going to survive on top of that. You drugged me. Yeah, I'm kind of done with you. So he leaves the apartment and Loki is like, you really leaving? And Puck is just like, ugh. And Loki tells Daniel, oh, he'll probably be back. And Daniel is a baby looking up at him, kind of like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So we see Corinthian and Joanna get to the apartment. They go to the bar. Puck is down there sulking in his feelings because he's just like, I can't believe I let this man play me. Okay. And so you can tell that Corinthian kind of has a thing for Joanna, but she is trying to keep him at bay. She's just kind of like, no, no, you're a nightmare. I don't, this ain't, mm-mm. And so they pull up to Puck on the bar, and Puck is kind of like talking about how, he used to be in a relationship, but they got into like, they just broke up, and they do have a child, but the baby's upstairs with him. But they don't know that Puck knows who Corinthian is, but Puck doesn't know that this is not the same Corinthian that was there before. So he kind of was like, you really don't remember me? And Corinthian was like, well, no, like I'm Corinthian 2.0. And he's like, oh. So he like looks around and he looks at Joanna and he was like, who are you? And she was like, I'm Joanna Constantine. And he was like, oh, the sorceress. And so he looks around and he's like, did you put like a spell around this, like salt, like margarita salt around here to keep me trapped? And she's like, no, we just came here looking for the baby and for Loki. That's what we came here to do. And he's like, you know what? Here the key. But he keeps talking to Corinthian like, you really don't remember me. And the things that okay. But he says to Joanna, you're a lucky woman. So that lets me know that Corinthian was breaking in Puck's back. Okay? Puck was getting it from Corinthian from all sides, all right? So we end up seeing Delirium go to Dream's room, and basically she's asking Dream like, do you want to go on a quest with me to find Barnabas, because I can't find him? And Dream is just like, girl, you know what's happening, I cannot leave this place. And she was like, Destiny said that, but then also Destiny said other things. And Dream is like, what do you mean? And mind you, while she's talking, she's like touching things on his desk, and you can tell that he's getting irritated, like he's like, okay, like stop touching everything. But she's just like, I went to talk to Destiny and I told him that I wanted you to come on the quest with me because I can tell that you've been kind of down. And multiple ones of him just popped up. It was like they all were saying different things. It was like at least like 12 or like 15 of them. And he said, really? And you see Dream smile, and it kind of freaks Delirium out because she's like, are you okay? And he was like, why are you asking? And he was like, because you're smiling. You don't ever smile. Like, well, like what's going on? You're freaking me out. It's like when Mandy smiled on on Billy versus Mandy and ended the world. Everybody, like, Delirium is uncomfortable. But then she ends up saying, like, I hope when I get back, like, we can go on another quest. And he's like, yeah, most definitely. And this time he actually, like, means it. Like, you could tell that he is starting to, like, realize he squandered his opportunity to, like, build a relationship with his family, and now that time is ticking, it putting things into perspective. But he actually ends up giving the baby gargoyle. I always thought Goldie was a dragon, like a dragon baby, but when I went on the Wikipedia's page, it said a gargoyle. So he gives baby Goldie to Delirium to like accompany her while she's in the waking world looking for Barnabas. So after getting the key from Puck, Corinthian and Joanna pull up on Loki. But mind you, Loki is the master of like tricks, or the god of, like, he's a trickster. So he looks like Dream. And Joanna is kind of like, oh, like, why are you already here? Like, where's the baby? And he's like, in there. And so she goes and gets the baby, but Corinthian can tell that that is not Dream. He walks up on him after Dream summons him to come near him and calls out to him, and then immediately starts choking him. And Joanna is like, what are you doing? And like Corinthian's like, you know this not him, right, girl? And so as he is choking Dream, Dream's face fades. It turns into Joanna's face. Joanna's like, oh my God. Like, okay. Then it shifts into Corinthian's face, the first version of him being like, you're really choking yourself out. And Corinthian says it's always the eyes. You can always tell who people are with their eyes. And then it shifts into Loki. And so Loki starts fighting back, trying to, set Corinthian on fire. But then lo and behold, Odin and Thor pull up. and arrest Loki. And Loki, I thought, would be like more angry or desperate to like get away from them or try to run away. But like he kind of just accepted it. And he actually is like taking jabs at Thor, basically saying, do you know Thor's wife has this like really pretty like birthmark between her thighs? She let me lick it. And it's pissing Thor off. And Thor is like, can we just kill him? And the dad is like, well, no, because it's like a far worse punishment is him being tortured underneath the earth where he knows he can't escape. So they expect Odin to be mad at Morpheus, aka Dream, but Odin basically was like, it's cool. Like, I know he about to suffer and I don't want him to like meet his end with any grudges. So I'm fine. He can go with peace. So they pick up the baby Daniel and they head to the dreaming realm. So we actually see Hattie, like I told y'all earlier. Mad Hattie was watching Elida, like, mourn the death of her son. And she begins to talk to Lyda and tell Lyda, like, hey, I can help you find your son or help you with getting revenge on those who have harmed your child. So Hattie takes Lyda to the Fates, to the Kindly Ones. And I thought that meant Lyda was like a descendant of theirs because they kept calling her granddaughter. I said, so is she one of y'all's like descendants? Or maybe like, I don't know. Lyda is in her full revenge bag. And now she has the helps of the Kindly Ones. Pretty much the Kindly Ones needed someone to petition. They needed specifically a vessel in order to enact their punishment against Dream. So I'm guessing the Kindly Ones and the Endless can't touch each other. They need vessels in order to fight for them, because I was confused why they weren't the ones attacking Dream, but here we are. So it's a mess now. So Lyda is like preparing for battle. The Kindly Ones are like gassing her head up, making her feel like, okay, girl, it's about to go down. And it sucks because we just saw Dream talking to Delirium and he was happy when he found out that there were multiple destinies, which made him realize like, okay, there could be a way out of this. There could be a different outcome. It just all depends on what he does, like his brother says. But now we know that he really is going to meet his end, mainly because Elida really is out for blood. She ready. She is out for blood, okay? So we go back to the fairy room and we actually see Nula going to her brother, begging him to take the glamour off of her. But she notices that Puck is there. She's like, what are you doing here? And Puck basically said he broke up with Loki. And honestly, it is what it is. He also says that you might want to go say bye to Dream because the plan that me and Loki enacted is in full effect right about now. So she goes to touch the necklace that's like on her neck to call on Dream to warn him about the Kindly Ones and Lyda coming for him. But the necklace is nowhere to be found because Queen Titania magicked it off of her. And it was all because of Clarigan. It was Clarigan's fault. Clarigan was the one that told her that the necklace could call on Dream for a boon. So she's arguing with her brother and she's pissed off because she's like, why? Like, why would you tell her that? Like, and he's like, well, maybe I was just a little bit drunk, just a little too drunk. And that's what happened. That's just like, it's not that big of a deal. He was like, I bet you she'll give it back if you ask for it. And Nula is like, no, she won't, because she basically wanted it the moment she knew it came from Dream. Like, she wanted the necklace. So they go to Queen Titania. She's like somewhere in the woods underneath like this like tent, this really regal tent. And she's like, Nula is trying to ask Titania to give back the necklace. And she's just like, no. And she summons Dream. She thinks by summoning Dream, it was going to, like, I guess, keep him safe, but it took him out of his realm, which allowed the Kindly Ones and Lyda to enter the room to start causing mass destruction. They just start messing up everything. So then the first thing we see, or the first person that gets harmed, is Fiddler's Green. He sees Lyda as the Kindly Ones walk into the room and he tries to say hi to her and she stabs him in the chest and kills him. And I said, oh, you got to go. Like, and honestly, I was going to try to give Light a grace because I saw how harsh everybody was being towards her. But like, I felt no sympathy for her the moment she killed Fiddler's Green, because I was like, he has done nothing to you. Even when he was in the waking world, he was kind towards you and even argue like on the behalf of you when it came to Dream wanting to take the baby. And you just like, no hello, no, like, I'm just right in the chest. I was like, yeah, I hope she doesn't get what she wants. Like, I was just like, whatever happens to her happens. And when that happens, we actually end up seeing Destiny in his realm, and we see all the multiple destinies that Delirium was talking about all phase into one. And then Destiny closes his book and he realizes that like Dream's future has pretty much been written and the end is coming. And that's how episode 9 ended.